Nicole Ortiz nos llena de energía positiva. Florece mujer. Believe in you.
Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Acá estamos de regreso por Believe in You, latinoinc.com. Y hoy le tenemos una sorpresa especial. We have a special surprise for you today in our Florece Mujer segment. Nicole is in the house.
Yay!
So Nicole is here with me because Nicole does live in Southern California. But furthermore, our guest, Barbara, we couldn't wait to have her at the next segment. So we say, hey, we're going to do our girl gang. And Barbara is also joining us today.
Yes.
Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
So Barbara Daoust and Nicole Ortiz are here live with us on latinoinc.com. We're going to go bilingual in certain things. That's just the way we roll. And today, Nicole has a very interesting topic for us, which she's going to present. And so Nicole was saying, oh, my God, what? We're going to go in English? I'm like, yeah, we're going in English, girl.
Yes, so get ready for my accent. Some people love it, some people hate it, but let's see. So today, we're going to talk about your dreams. They are not a luxury. Find a purpose for them and stop putting excuses. And I knew Barbara was coming today, and Cecilia, I want her in my segment, please. And of course, Cecilia, she helps me with everything I ask her. And thank you so much, Barbara, for being here. I had so many questions for you.
Great.
And talking about this topic, I just wanted to know, there is so many women, there's so many people who have a dream. It's just a dream sometimes, and sometimes it's difficult to find like a place for the dream, how we find that purpose. So I think, Cecilia, if you're okay, we just go directly to that question. How do we put a motive, a purpose for our dreams?
Which is a great question. You know, it's everybody has a dream, and many people have many dreams. And what you'll find is that through your life, the dream never goes away. It just doesn't go away. So you might get some knocking in your soul calling you to do something more because you know there's more inside of you, right? So you know that there's greatness inside of you. It's just how are you going to express that greatness? And so some people, they want to know exactly what their dream is, and some people have a really good idea, you know, that maybe at one time they gave up their passion for dance, or they gave up their passion for acting, or they gave up their passion for writing, or they gave up their passion to become a speaker, whatever it is. You know, then there are people who don't know what their dream is. So they just keep thinking that they don't have a dream, but they know that there's something inside of them that wants to be expressed. So spirit is always moving to and through us, constantly seeking expression. So nature out there is always looking to grow. Right? So we as human beings, too, are always looking to grow, to find a fuller version of ourselves. And most people get stuck in what's called a comfort zone. And in that comfort zone, right, they stay the same, and they're not taking risks, and they're not taking the first step to exploring what they could be living into as far as like a bigger dream. So I like to tell a lot of people, you know, start with just a small goal. Whether or not it's that you want to go from being invisible in your life to being visible. How are you going to do that? So that might be your dream, and your goal is just to be seen more.
Wow, you mentioned something interesting, because that was my quote for today, was to step out of your comfort zone. Because that's where the growing takes place.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
If you don't do that, if you don't take risk, and how I changed my plans this month because things changed in my life.
Exactly.
And I had to put myself out of the comfort zone, but also because opportunities like that don't come every day.
Right.
And using that discernment is like, okay, should I do it? Should I not do it? And many times the fear is the one that paralyzes us. But the one thing that I liked about, you know, when she proposed the topic is when she said, your dreams are not a luxury. And when you and I talked about it last week, and I said, I want to emphasize the fact that we can sit there and make all these lists about goals and dreams, vision boards, all that, but then we don't respect it. And it's like, respect your dreams. And you mentioned also something is that when we all have dreams. Sometimes people can't figure out what that dream is, but we're always walking toward it, or life just takes us there. It brings it back to us.
Exactly. Part of the problem is that people go into overwhelm because their focus is on a bigger piece, a bigger vision, or something that they think is out of their reach. I'll never do that. I'll never be able to do that. And so all the paradigms, all the excuses, like you were saying, all the justifications, rationalizations about why they can't do it, as soon as they think about something big, all those fears, doubts, and worries are going to kick in. So I call that the terror barrier. And to get through that terror barrier is to start one step at a time. So most people are focused on the end result, and they're automatically going to go into overwhelm. When we go into overwhelm, we're going to procrastinate.
Yes.
The perfectionist in us, right,
true.
is going to say, I can't do it because it has to look a certain way, instead of letting ourselves evolve. That naturally we are where we are, and from that place to just challenge ourselves into the next step. So Don Shula, the coach for the Miami Dolphins, says it perfectly. He says it's the start that stops most people. So if you're going to look at a dream, the best thing to do is to take the first step. What is the first step? So most people do not build a home without a blueprint.
Right.
Most people, are not going to just go and decide to create a fashion line without having their pattern.
Yes.
Right? And so most people, if you're going to take a trip to Chicago, if we're going to leave from Los Angeles and drive to Chicago, we're going to need a map. And so otherwise we're just stepping out into our cars and driving west or east or north or south without direction. So most people are not even committed to making a decision. And the first thing you must do is when you decide that you're going to go for your dream, you must make a committed decision. Most people are not willing to do that because it does get them out of the comfort zone. And highly successful people are constantly living outside the comfort zone.
And to add to that, somebody mentioned this weekend a little story that helped me to see a lot of the comfort zone. It's like we are aligned in that sense, because that has been talking to my head too. And it's the fact that somebody put boiling water, and they throw the crab in the boiling water, and the crab was automatically just jump out. You probably know that story. But then they put the water in warm water, and then just put the crab over there, and guess what happened? Slowly the crab just boiled.
That's
because
right.
that was the comfort zone.
That's
and
right.
that's what happened, I think, when we just stay in that comfort zone and we don't listen to our dreams, that we're just gonna just vanish. You're gonna die with it. And to add to that, I see that sometimes what happens when we have our purpose is that we are waiting for things to happen to us. It's like, and I see that a lot in the Latino culture, like if God wants, if it's for me.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of that thing, makes a lot of sense for in the spiritual realm. But I think that we also need to be proactive. It's like you have to go for it. I don't know. Biblically, I speak more into that because I come from a ministry, have a ministry. It doesn't say just wait, for your dreams. It says you have to take action.
Yes.
You have to go and get them. So what do you say about that?
Well, yes, we do have to take action, but there are people who do take a lot of action and don't get the results they want.
Okay.
At the same time, right? Because they're just spinning over and over again the same action and not getting the result that they want.
You're right. That's the.
It's
like don't expect different results with the same approach or the same attitude or the same behavior, the same actions.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And so what people are not understanding is there's 3 parts to our personality. And that's the intellectual part, the spiritual part, and the physical part. We're in a physical body, right? So unless you have your thinking and your mindset aligned correctly, then the spiritual part is going to be stuck as well as the physical is going to be stuck. So that we can be receiving information from outside, but if our conscious mind is not thinking in support of what we want, then it's not going to move down into our body as the right action. you see. So it's when you understand the three components of our personalities and get them to align so that your thoughts lead to your feelings and your feelings lead to your actions.
Yes.
And the feeling place is the most important place where manifestation, where form in the real world takes place. And most people are just thinking with their minds and keeping their thoughts at a conscious level, but not dropping it into an internal level, embodying their imagination, really physicalizing and feeling their emotions and feeling their desires. And once they do that and bring it into their bodies and fuse with their thinking, then the outer world is going to reflect that. Most people are not dealing with their inner world.
So how do you deal when you physically don't feel well? Like today was an example for me. I'm like, I feel good. I wash my hair. I mean, those are real mundane things, but it's a reality. But physically, I didn't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, you gotta like get it together between this drive, from the house to the radio station. But I'm like, I don't feel well. I know I need to go to the doctor. And those things throw you off.
Yes.
When you're physically not feeling well, it doesn't matter what. It's hard to connect. Even
Right.
if you're looking beautiful, feeling beautiful. Like I felt good. I'm like, I look good today. I'm like, I feel good. And I made an effort for that to be, but it wasn't in alignment with how I'm feeling physically.
Right, right. So, sometimes we get sick, right? Or we get a cold, or we're not feeling as healthy as we want to feel. And there's a lot of different ways to look at that. One way is that it's telling you to slow down. One way is it's telling you that you need to maybe drink more water, or that you need to take more care, or that you need to have more rest. Another possibility might be that you're releasing toxins, that there's something inside of you from your situation in your life that needs to be released, right? Everything, bottom line, is that we're living in a world of polarity. So for every up, there's down. For every in, there's out. For hot,
God, so
there's
right.
cold,
Yes.
right? So we can either focus on the contrast, the negative pole, right? Or we can focus on the positive pole. Now, it doesn't mean that when we're focused on the positive pole that the illness or the cold goes away. It's how you choose to respond to it. Whether or not you're going to be a victim of it, or whether or not you're going to be kind to yourself and understand that this is just part of your body flushing itself rid of toxins, or that you need to slow down.
Right.
And what are the thoughts that you
Get
are
some
giving?
rest.
Get some rest. Or like even with the fires, that have been here recently, when I have people calling me in anxiety and panic and fear, the panic and fear is not going to do anything about the fires.
Right.
It's not going to change anything. So they can choose to spend their time worrying in a high state of stress, a high state of panic and anxiety, and that the world is going to disappear in front of their eyes. Or they can choose to say, I'm just going to accept and allow nature to take its course, and then I'll respond. You see, and so that when they realize that they've spent 2 days in a high state of anxiety and stress, but their home is okay, they could have avoided all that stress. They could have avoided all that anxiety. It's how we choose to respond. So if we're constantly in a state of reacting, we're not in control of our emotions. So it's really to be empowered. It's to manage your emotions. When you are managing your emotions, you're in charge of your emotions. When you're not managing them, they're in charge of you. And that's when you're going to feel fear. That's when you're going to feel panic and anxiety. And that's when you're going to be disconnected from spirit. When we're in fear, we're in our ego mind. When we're inspired, we're in spirit.
Nicely put. And you said something interesting about the fires and how I chose not to engage, especially in social media.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just felt that although I'm empathizing with what happened and a lot of what happened to people, I just can't be writing I'm sorry this is happening to you to everybody. So I'm praying for all of these people, but I'm not engaging. because that it just becomes too much, and it creates drama. And like you said, it takes over you. They bring you into their drama, their situation, and you, being empathetic, you think that by engaging it's okay, but it's not, because you're also draining yourself.
That's right. That's right. And it's not to say that we don't feel our feelings. You know, it's important that we feel those feelings. And yes, we're going to have fear. And fear is really, again, on the negative side of the pole, and that's where we have contrast. So it's always to be using contrast to inform you how to get to the other side. Because for a whole lot bad, what's the opposite?
A lot of good.
A whole lot good.
Right.
Right? And so it's not to say don't feel your feelings. Yes, feel your feelings. Let those feelings move through you. Acknowledge those feelings and know that you can reach out for help, you know, and that you can reach out for people to support you. And asking for help is another way of releasing. You see? And so then when you get feedback, it's all about getting feedback. You know, who are you going to get feedback from? How are you going to respond to feedback?
Well, I think the feedback is very important to mention, because that's sometimes the root of our fears. And with that, I wanted to mention, Cecilia sent me a video the other day. Do you remember Reese Witherspoon?
Yes.
And she was talking about how women, the importance of women, and how she went out from a situation where she was stuck into a situation where she is empowered right now. And that makes me feel, what will be the first approach that you will recommend to somebody that feels stuck? Like they say, I remember in the video she said, always, I don't remember, it was something like, what are you gonna do? Like sometimes we don't know what we're gonna do. Like never ask a woman what she's gonna do. And then it's like in that moment she had to ask herself what she was gonna do. And I find myself asking myself, what am I gonna do now? But it's true that we know already what we're gonna do. We just don't know how to get it out.
And get it out. Yes.
So what would you say when you feel stuck in, like, okay, I don't know what to do right now. I know this is my, I know where I'm going. I know exactly where is my dream. What I'm going to do now? How you get from there?
Yes, yeah, that's a great question. Again, I believe it's all about mindset, and the thoughts that you choose that lead to your feelings that then lead to your actions. It has a metaphor. I was stuck on the elevator here today.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I thought, this is a metaphor for life. What do you do when you're stuck? And so I thought, well, I could panic and think, gosh, figures it happens to me. It always happens to me. And so now I'm not even going to make the interview, right? This is going to be a day of chaos. It's going to be an emergency. And there were 3 people on the elevator with me. And I consciously chose. So you have to get conscious. You've got to get aware that you choose your thinking. And so I just thought, okay, I'm going to press the help button and ask for the guy to come and help us on the elevator. And then the next thought I had was, well, there's a blind person on the elevator, and I want to find out a little bit more about that person. And then I'm going to just be observant of how we're behaving, And it was within a matter of minutes that everything was under control, right? So again, when we go into the big picture, we go into overwhelm. I could have fantasized my entire day being a disaster.
Yes.
The whole thing could have and then that would have created a frequency in me, a vibration in me that would be out of balance, right? And then everything, that just, does a snowball effect, right? And then if I went to get a tea, then it would be they didn't do it right. Then it would be, the next thing, and the next thing. This isn't working out. Today is just a bad day. Right? Right?
So then you declare that.
And you declare that, right?
Yes.
So as far as like your first step in getting unstuck, if you make a decision, like I know in my life, and there's all kinds of tools, and there's all kinds of tools in a toolbox that you can choose to help you. It's just, are you learning those tools? Are you applying those tools? Are you doing those tools? I know when I started getting into this work, it wasn't intentional. It just evolved for me. I had no intention of being a success and mindset coach. And so when I had tragedy in my life, I spent 3 years going to that negative pole, being in contrast. Really, what I desired was just to be on the other side with all my loved ones. And then one day I made a decision, and the decision, I can remember that day very vividly. In my living room, I had had my curtains closed for over a year. And I just decided, I just went, I am no longer willing to be miserable. And the unfortunate thing, as I've discovered in my work, is that a lot of people come to me when they're miserable. A lot of people come when the pain is so great that they are at the end of their rope. And it's my biggest wish to get to people before that happens so that they can make a decision. And, sometimes with mentorship or coaching or accountability or a support person, is that sometimes we need people to believe in ourselves more than we believe in us. Right? To believe in us more than we do believe in ourselves.
So true.
You see?
Sometimes, yes, I mentor a lot of women. She's one of the women I mentor, and sometimes you realize that you believe more in them than they believe in themselves.
Absolutely.
And it's hard to get them to that point because you see their potential and you also see the trauma and the issues that they're dealing with. And you know that they can overcome because I overcame.
Right.
And I'm still overcoming.
Right.
But it's when they're ready. Whatever that may be is when they're ready, and sometimes you just have to kind of pull back.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that when we get into your interview because it goes into also setting boundaries.
Yes, yes. And the thing, getting back to your question, Nicole, I know that for myself, for some people, depending on where they're at, where I started was I noticed how negative I was toward myself. And I noticed how I was beating myself up, and then I went into depression, and then I just kept sinking, But I never realized that I always saw the cup half empty. So I lost my husband 2 months before my 25th wedding anniversary. And then I lost 4 more people after him. And he was my, we were joined at the hip. He was the one who saw everything half full. I never realized that I was brutally unkind to myself.
Wow.
And he was the one who believed in me. And he's the one who saw all the value in me. But when I was left alone, it became very challenging because I just didn't know how to love me, right? So I started with, when I made that declaration, I opened up the curtains and I said, I'm no longer willing to be miserable anymore. I had just lost my father. And then I thought, well, what do I do? And I started walking around the park again. And I started patting myself on the back, saying, good job, good job. And then I started holding my head up high and looking out at the horizon, and it helps with depression, so that it was about the future. Now I'm ready to look into the future. Then I started forcing myself to put a smile on my face because that creates dopamine in the body.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And then I started holding my shoulders back and lifting myself up higher. And then I took pottery classes, and I created a pot that was, and this was before I got any help. I just knew to do this for myself because I saw how harsh I was, how judgmental I was toward myself. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got all this education, I've got so many people who love me, but yet I just don't know how to do that for me. And in these pots, I put the enter pot and the delete pot. And in one pot, I put a pile of salt, and the other pot, I put some water. And every time I had this negative self-talk, I ran to the salt, I took a pinch of salt, and I went, delete. Right? Delete.
I love that.
Delete. And then what I did was I saw that I was running up to my kitchen counter a lot. I just made that's my first step to get unstuck. See, a lot of people think their first step to get unstuck is that they have to go and be a speaker and do it. But no, I had to work with my thinking. I had to work with my thoughts. And then gradually I saw I wasn't running up to the counter as much.
Oh, wow.
And then it started showing me it was working, so that where it was like 50 times, 100 times a day that I was going, delete, 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 then I wasn't doing that as much, right? Because that was a commitment. Then I made, let's say, the next step, it's to work with our habits. So I decided that, when I had a thought, like I'm stirring my latte, and I'm singing, I have to work hard for my money. I have to work hard for my money, right? Then I go, delete, stop, change immediately, because that's just part of programming.
Yes.
That's just part of a repetitious program in the mind, learned from culture, learned from parenting, learned from schooling, learned from peers. These are all beliefs at the subconscious level, right, that are running the show, because 88% of our behavior is controlled by the subconscious mind. And that's where our paradigms are. That's where our limited beliefs are controlling the way we act. And so when you start to commit, then, and you start to see changes in your behavior, whether or not it's eating chocolate cake every day. I work with what's called a success habit chart. And for 30 days, I'll commit to 2 new habits that I want to create. You don't want to just get rid of a bad habit. You want to replace a bad habit with a new productive habit.
That's an excellent point.
I have not thought of that one.
Because if you start to let go of a bad habit, what do you think replaces it?
Another bad habit.
Another bad habit.
Yes.
That's goal right there.
Another bad habit, right? So I saw that I was eating chocolate cake every day, right? And I was like, now I need to say goodbye to this chocolate cake habit. So what I decided was, well, I'll eat a sweet potato, right? So that's the positive replacement,
Yes.
right? And so every day that I ate the sweet potato, then I would check off on my chart, sweet potato. And what they discovered, NASA did an experiment with astronauts. And the experiment was for 30 days to do a new behavior and to stay consistent and persistent with that new behavior. And they did a brain scan before they started the experiment. And then after the 30 days, they saw that the neural pathways in the brain shifted. Because they created new neural pathways, which means a new pattern. And then they did an experiment where they did 15 days, a day off, and then 15 days. And the neural pathways didn't change.
So once it created new neural pathways, it stays, it remains.
Well, you must keep the habit going, right? But your chances of succeeding are going to be a lot greater if you do it for 30 days. If you don't do it for 30 days consistently, every day in a row, you must start back at day 1.
Oh, so that 20-day habits, that's not true then.
No. And it's, and for now they're showing, there was a recent study done at the University of London where they say it's 66 days before you change a habit.
Okay.
Wow, not
But
21.
But the experiment that NASA did was that maybe 21 days you start to change the habit, but it's 30 days before the neural pathways start to shift. Because we've got these neural pathways in our brain. The brain wants the path to least resistance. It wants order. So it's going to go on autopilot. Because otherwise we're thinking about blood moving through our bodies in our veins. We're thinking about the muscles and the tendons. We're thinking about when we're driving that we've got to pay attention to the white line on the road. We don't want to create that much hardship for ourselves, so we go on autopilot. Right?
Yes.
And so the trick here is to know that when autopilot is good and when autopilot is not good. So people who say that they're stuck, right, one of the first things to say is, I know what I want.
Okay.
Because if they keep saying, I'm stuck,
They're going to remain stuck.
they're going to keep on telling the story that they're stuck. So one of the exercises that I tell people to do is just take a week and observe how many times you say, I don't know. I don't know what I want. I don't know. I don't know. And as soon that if there's anything I fear in my life is when I say I don't know. Because I know when I say I don't know, then I'm not going to get the result I want. So I immediately stop and say, what do I know? Or when you say, I don't want, watch your languaging. When you say, I don't want, I don't want, I don't want. All your focus is, I don't want a bad marriage. I don't want a bad relationship with my children. I don't want. You're going to keep on getting what you don't want because subconscious mind does not filter negatives. It's not hearing I don't want. It doesn't hear don't. It hears I want.
Oh, wow.
Right? When you say to your kids, don't do that, what do?
They do it.
They do it because their subconscious mind is not filtering out the negative.
It doesn't understand negation.
It doesn't understand negation.
Yes.
Subconscious mind accepts whatever you give it, whether it's real or imaginary. So when you say, I don't want, immediately stop and say, what do I want? What do I want? And then speak it. And then ask yourself, now, why do I want that? And then say, how do I want to feel? And then you'll have clarity. Universe responds to clarity with clarity.
Oh, I love it.
Confusion
Yes.
with
What
confusion.
yes.
That's it. So watch when you're saying, I don't know. I worked with a young boy who was having a horrible time in college. He got kicked out of school and he was seeing academic counselors. And then I just said, okay, there's one rule in every time we coach together. There's one rule. You cannot say, I do not know. I don't know. Every question I asked him, he'd say, I don't know.
Sounds like my son.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
So-
I don't know. That's just, it drives me crazy.
Yeah. And so he listened to that he couldn't say that with me. And then he started to get into the habit. A year later, he's now doing really well at the American University in Paris, studying entrepreneurship. And he calls me on time every week, and he never says, I don't know.
Wow.
Right? And as a result of this, he just called me it was a month ago actually, and he was invited to an entrepreneurial forum in Saudi Arabia by the Prince of Saudi Arabia where Bill Gates was going to be.
Oh, my
Wow.
goodness.
You know, he's flipped everything around in a short amount of time just by declaring what he knows.
So I want to be mindful of the time because we definitely went past it and we have like 15 minutes left.
So Florita Latina is done. The phrase of the day, the quote of the day will be, your dreams just don't happen. You work for them. Okay, you go get them.
Yes, and Barbara, we definitely went into a lot of what we were going to talk about anyways, you know, in the interview with you, but we'd like to know, we have a lot of people that have, once they saw the post, they were excited that you were going to be on the show because some of them are actually your clients or your students, whatever you want to call it, and they are women that are empowered. It has taken them a while to understand, you know, about what steps they need to take in their lives to overcome some of those obstacles, is because sometimes you don't know what that is.
Right.
And that, for me, it meant coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Once I understood that, it's like she said, God gives you certain tools or the universe or the spirit, but you have an army of people around you that you have to knock on that door.
That's right.
That you have to rely on. And coaching to me was epic. It changed my life. But the way that it started is because I made a certain step first. I created a program called Coaching on the Go.
Great.
And when I created Coaching on the Go to help business owners, because I realized that one of the weaknesses that startups and business owners have is not having mentorship and coaching, I started surrounding myself with coaches.
Yes.
And once that happened, my learning accelerated to the
Yes.
degree. And it was amazing. And that's in the last 6 years, my life has taken an amazing turn. The learning has been just exponential. I dated someone that was a coach, an expert in body language.
Great.
And although it was a crazy relationship, but the learning was tremendous.
Uh-huh.
And for someone like me who's very curious and an avid learner, that really was, I hear you and it's like I'm hearing what he teaches and how powerful it really is, you know, especially when it came about the mindset and the things that you were talking about, that the brain doesn't understand negation. I didn't get that. I did not understand. I didn't understand that. And you explained it today in such a way because it's just removed that word.
Yes.
And it's so many times that you hear people say that. We still say it, but it is a conscious effort and it's an exercise.
That's right.
It's like, what do you know? And focus on that. And we were talking about earlier how a lot of times, in the Hispanic community, because, our audience is mostly Latinos, our second market is Mexico, is that there are a lot of taboos. There are a lot of limiting beliefs, which is another thing I had to learn. I know that, Tony Robbins basically kind of became a huge influencer.
Yes.
On mindset and limiting beliefs and all of that, which is something I hadn't even heard of before until 5-6 years ago. But I always question, it's like, why do we think like this? Why do we do this? Why do I not like the way I feel about this? Which I started questioning that as a child when I made the decision to leave my country, because I felt that it was too backwards. The thinking was too backwards for me, too limiting. And I'm a creative person, and I didn't want to feel contrived. I didn't want to feel cornered. I didn't want to feel oppressed, is what I felt. You have to. It was always, I grew up with this, you have to do this because I say so.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So understanding all of that, and how important it is to have coaches in your life and to have mentors in your life has been so life-changing for me, that now my next step is, okay, financial growth, so that I can hire those individuals, so that I can grow and really get to those goals, because I realize I cannot do it alone. And it's hard to even do it with free resources, because you can only get so far.
Yes.
With that.
Yes.
So even understanding that you have to invest in your growth.
Yes.
So the organization I preside, called Latina Vida, and I added a financial literacy track.
Great.
When I was talking to one of the presenters this couple months ago, I said, well, I want you to talk about budget, because that is so basic, but it's so many of us don't do it, or don't understand the importance of it. And when we were like, what are the line items? I said, to me, I would definitely add this one: invest in personal development. When do people put that as a line item in the budget? But it's so critical, because I realize that the most successful individuals in the world, top CEOs, they all have coaches.
That's right.
They have coaches for everything, whether it's etiquette. So then the pieces started coming together for me when I realized that the things that I hated as a child that my mom made me do, like go to typing classes, became an amazing tool for me in the advent of computers and the internet. Because once computers came out, I was like a fish in water with a keyboard. And now I'm like thankful for that. When she sent me to etiquette and protocol classes, same thing. Little did I know that I would be doing radio, that I would be doing public speaking, that I would be coaching, mentoring, teaching other women, that we would end up in the White House, that all of these things that I have plans, that would also be critical, to my life years later. So all of those, connecting the dots, definitely it makes you be grateful.
Yes.
And that being in a state of gratitude is really critical, but also being very careful with that, because being in a perpetual state of gratitude, you also make mistakes. And I've made mistakes by being too generous, too kind. And that's why I said I want to talk about boundaries, because many a times you go out of your way to help people. I have been in bad relationships, whether it's with a male or female, because I have been too giving. And I didn't set, those boundaries. But then when it was too late when I wanted to set boundaries, they rebelled.
That's right. Yes.
Because they take for granted that what I'm doing, they're entitled to that. So now I'm learning also to, when I've been hit with losses and, with a relationship or friends, took it hard. Now, you know what? I don't care. Now I've gotten to the point that I realized that this is how far I was supposed to come with this person. And I'm okay with that.
Great.
Before, I was not okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, no, but I have to help them.
Right. Yes. Well, when you're helping somebody else like that, you're enabling. Right? And the thing about responsibility is to teach other people to be responsible for themselves. Because when we enable, we're robbing people of their self-respect.
Wow. Like the hit.
right?
That's powerful right there.
Yeah, it's very, very powerful. So that you know that with children, that you're pretty responsible up until a certain age, but then otherwise, we are not responsible for other people's feelings, right? We're only responsible for our own feelings. And we've had to learn ourselves the hard way sometimes, right? But what does it bring us? It brings us self-respect. It brings us more courage, And so when I used to in my past be a really, really good teacher. I was an acting coach and a director in my past, right? And so I used to feel really, really good when other people had success. So I was really good at teaching other people how to be successful, but I wasn't doing it for me. And the power that I felt was when somebody else was successful. That's when I felt powerful. But when they weren't successful or when nobody was around, I didn't feel good about myself. I didn't feel powerful. So I was really getting a false sense of power by helping other people, you see. And then also it became more conditional. Most people are giving, but with conditions. And when we give with conditions, we're expecting something in return.
Right.
So it's really better to have what's called giver's gain. Give, but give unconditionally. And give when it's not attached to an expectation that it's going to bring you something. And then the universe is going to reward you in other ways. You will gain in other ways. You see?
And I've seen that. Yes.
Yeah.
You gain it's like tenfold.
It's tenfold.
Yes.
And I work with a personal affirmation, and my personal affirmation is I'm genuinely sharing loving kindness with myself because that's what I had to work on. I was not kind to myself and others as I revitalize hope and raise conscious living for the highest good of all. So I allow that to guide me and direct me everywhere I go. Am I going to take my time, my valuable time, and be here today because there's loving kindness, because it's an opportunity to revitalize hope, and it's also an opportunity to raise conscious living? The answer is yes, right? It's covering all those areas that mean the most to me. If I'm going to go someplace where it's depleting me, it's robbing me of my energy, and it's all negativity, the answer is no.
Right.
I'm not going there. If it's sitting down and watching news with a group of people in a room, the answer is no.
Right.
I'm not going there. I'm not going to do that to please other people, right? Because it's robbing me of my energy. So I get very, very selective. And that's, with the Napoleon Hill principles in masterminding with other people. So like to your point, Cecilia, we can't do it alone. I was somebody who was like a strong woman who was a teacher, but I was teaching everybody else what to do. I wasn't doing it for me because I really wasn't that strong. I was pretending that I was strong, right? Because I was disconnected from my truth and my value because it was never enough. I'm a recovering perfectionist.
I think
so
we're all guilty of that one.
Right?
A little
Right?
bit.
And so until I started to see that for me to be a master was to work what I taught. Those who are masters are highly compensated because they're walking their talk. They're doing what they're teaching and they're living it. And then they get results because of that.
I have a question regarding your husband. When you mentioned that he was the one that looked at the glass half full, do you think he was an enabler?
Well, I think it was codependency, absolutely.
Codependency. That
Absolutely.
You had.
I never realized it. I never even realized that I was codependent. I thought I was this independent, strong woman, but I was living in, programs that were not serving me. So it was a wake-up call because everything was seeking approval outside of myself instead of really working with my inner world, designing my dreams, putting a roadmap, structuring a plan, I would like to work with 90-day plans.
Written down
Yes.
plans, because they say that
Yes.
what is it, a dream is not a dream without a plan.
That's right.
Yes.
Right. It's just a wish.
It's just a wish. A goal
Right.
is not a dream. It's not a plan until you write it down.
That's right. That's why I even have here what's my goal card. and I carry this around with me and I read it daily, and it's written. And then I also, this is part of my daily habit. I write that goal statement every single day. I just keep writing it and writing it every single day. And then I also write it with my left hand, my non-dominant hand, so that I'm starting to, it's uncomfortable. I really, brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. Do things that are uncomfortable. Force yourself to do uncomfortable things. And then that way, say if I have the belief that I want to produce a Broadway show, but then immediately I go, I can't do that. I don't have the money to do that immediately. And so then I'm not even going to take the first step.
Right.
But then if I think about it, well, what's really the problem? The problem might be the belief that I don't know how to ask people for money, right? So am I going to produce a Broadway show if I don't know how to ask people for money? Not likely. Not likely, right? So then I start practicing asking people for money in little ways, So little ways, just like, I'd like to give her more tip, but I don't have the extra dollar. Do you mind helping me? Any little way that's uncomfortable, right? So that you push yourself out of the comfort zone.
I have a list.
Right?
I have
Or
a list
two.
of things that I still haven't done because I'm
Yes.
like, I don't like doing that.
Yes.
You just hit on one.
Yes.
When you have resistance, feel the resistance, and the way to do it is to step into the resistance.
Well, how come is it that some days you're like, yes, I can do this, and you do it, and then you go back to that old pattern?
Because your subconscious mind doesn't want you to change. We resist change. So once you start as soon as you see, the program that I work with, you have to create a goal that you don't know how to do. If you're creating a goal that you know how to do, you're going in the wrong direction.
Oh, wow.
But as soon as you create a goal you don't know how to do, like I'm working with a 72-year-old woman who wants to lose weight. We all know how to lose weight, right? But her goal now is that she signed up for a bodybuilding competition. She doesn't know how to do a bodybuilding competition. But now she's every day in the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning because she has to wear a bikini for the contest, right? So once you go after a goal you don't know how to do, all your paradigms, all your fears, your doubts, your worries are going to come popping up. Your car's going to have a flat tire, your refrigerator,
Yes.
somebody's going to call you with an emergency. Everything is going to go into out of control. And when that happens, you've got to know you're on the right track. Most people go back because they're not crossing through the terror barrier.
They read it wrong.
They read it wrong.
Like, I'm not supposed to do this.
That's right.
Because all this hell broke loose.
That's right. That's right. So when the hell is breaking loose, you've got to know. Like I tell people, when I started realizing the power in that, I'd be in the shower crying and I'm going, good. It's changing. Something's changing and it's good. And when you start doing that, like I've had a few months of like chaos, but I know I've created a new program. And I'm working with neural pathways, and I'm working with neuro reprogramming, and I'm working with what's called brain entrainment. And we're adding brain frequencies, alpha, delta, and theta. And it's all about going to the subconscious mind to get rid of the limited beliefs.
I gotta go to that one.
It's a really amazing program. But as soon as I started creating something new, everything possible that could go wrong
Goes wrong.
pops. It all starts because it's showing you your limitations, and that subconscious mind and ego mind want to stay familiar. They want to stay in the comfort zone. So highly successful people are constantly out of their comfort zone, is what I said. And highly successful people form the habits of doing things that unsuccessful people are not willing to do.
Wow, I love that. That's great advice. I want us to talk about your book, present your book before we have like 2 minutes.
Yes, well, my book is True Love, True Self, A Journey to Self-Love. And you can buy it on Amazon. And, just Google True Love, True Self, Barbara Daoust. And then also if people wanted to know about the neuroprogramming programs that I'm doing, they can just go to www.unlockingyourgeniuscode.com.
Oh, I like that.
So it's about getting to, and the great thing about the brain entrainment program is, with affirmations, like you say them over and over and over again, you repeat, and then you imprint, and you write and write and write. And that repetition is really the key to mastery.
Are you actually writing the same goal
Every day?
So that's part of the training.
That's
you're
part of the
doing,
training.
and with your left hand.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes,
that's
every day.
awesome.
Because what will happen, it's called praxis. Once you start putting in, it's like imagine a cup of dirty water and you keep pouring dirty water. What eventually happens to that dirty water?
Turns
Dirty.
black.
Dirty or
Dirtier.
black mud,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
It becomes dry and muddy, right? But when you start pouring in clear water, what starts to happen?
Cleaning.
It starts to clean, right?
Yes.
Right? You keep pouring in the clear water and you're going to get clean water, right? So when you keep putting in what you want over and over and over again, it's going to take over the bad. It's going to push the bad out, like the dirty water. It's going to keep pushing it out. And those dirty negative thoughts are going to die for lack of nourishment because you're only nourishing with what you want. You see. And then with the brain entrainment, because there are core fractures at a very deep level that are running the ship, they're just driving the ship, And so with the brain entrainment, it's using frequencies and vibrations to get to a deeper level of your subconscious mind and start replacing those old patterns and old programs because they're deep. Those are grooves in our brain that are so deep. And our decisions in our lives have been based on an incident. We may have decided that, dogs were unsafe because a dog bit us when we were 2 years old. And every decision in our life is affected by that. Every time we see a dog, we go into fear, and then we tell the story again, and we tell the story again, and we keep producing the same result.
Are we born with some of those?
Yes.
Yes, I've seen it.
Yes.
I can't believe it. When I seen relatives repeat and they did not grow up, like we've raised several children outside of our family household, including cousins, and I couldn't believe that although they were not being raised by the mother, they were repeating the same things.
Yes.
And it shocked me. And I
Yes,
was like,
it's
wow,
it's your
genetic.
DNA, it's genetic, it's your heritage. The fear of public speaking goes all the way back to caveman days when somebody would stand up in a tribe and speak a different opinion and they would have their head cut off.
Oh, that's powerful because most people have that fear.
Yes. And then, when it got to the medieval ages and they feared, if they stood up and spoke their mind, they'd get rotten vegetables thrown at them. Vaudeville, they'd take the hook when they didn't like you and pull you off the stage, right? We have that in our DNA. So these fears, yes, they go into lineage, heritage, DNA. And to reprogram, the only way to reprogram is to create a new belief and keep repeating it over and over and over and over and over again until it becomes the clear water.
So is it reprogramming at the cellular level?
It's at the cellular level. Yeah.
There's a very interesting TED Talk that I was actually watching. I've seen it a couple times. It just popped up, maybe because I had it there before, from this doctor, a Canadian doctor who's talking about creating new neural pathways, but she's focused on it mostly because of people that have had strokes, that have to learn all over again their motor skills and everything.
Actually, the doctor that I'm working with, who's my partner, our company's called Vibrant Results. And we now are doing a study in Helsinki with stroke victims.
So something for another show, but most definitely, wow, what an enriched conversation today. Thank you so much.
You're so
Barbara.
welcome.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Nicole,
thank
for
you so
Yes,
much.
you're so
being
welcome.
here
Powerful.
today.
Thank
Yes,
you. This was a lot of
yes,
fun. Thank you for having
so
me.
thank you for sharing your gifts. I knew that this would be a powerful way to also end the year.
Yes, yes. And also masterminding. Make sure you're not hanging out with negative people. Try to remove yourself from negative Nellies and David Downers, right? And surround yourself with positive people, like-minded people. Get into a mastermind, get an accountability partner, and get a coach, somebody, a mentor. I do not live my life without having a coach, and I have many.
I couldn't agree more. Nicole, you have any words for closing?
Well, this is so powerful. She already said it all. I just want to say thank you so much. You answered my questions, and this is a great way to get unstuck. Ladies, we know it. It's inside of us. So let's change those thoughts and those words in our lives. And thank you so much for having me today. Cecilia, thank you.
So this was a great way for us to really go into the end of the year, because I started the year, because that's when I started in January with mindfulness, consciousness, awareness, goal setting, and mindset. But definitely it made more sense to really end the year that way so that we're ready to take off. And with that, thank you so much for tuning in today on Believe in You por RadioLatinoInc.com. Thank you for tuning in week after week. Thank you, Nicole. And again, thank you, Barbara, for being here with us. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Believe in You. No te preocupes por lo que fue. Abre los ojos a lo que vendrá. Sintonízanos la próxima semana a través de RadioLatinoInc.com. Believe in You. Con Cecilia Mota.